All right, guys, I think we're going to get started. It's a little bit after 11 now. Just first want to say thank you to our host. Got a little bit of an echo. Okay. Thank you for hosting us, and we look forward to a great conversation. I want to start off by just sending my condolences to Brian Strickland. As you know, I am not Brian Strickland, but I'm, sending thoughts and prayers to his family. His uncle passed away, and so I will step in and chair the committee for him today. I know he's put a lot of effort and energy into this and would love to be here, but certainly understandable under these circumstances. Just to start off, I'd like to ask Senator Mallow if he would open us up in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Most gracious, eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this time and opportunity to be here, to be present today. Father, we thank you for your grace, and most importantly, God, we thank you for your mercy. Father, let our meeting be productive and our thoughts forthcoming to better serve the children of the great state of Georgia. And Father, we commit Senator Strickland and his family into your hands and ask that you be with them during this time of bereavement, and let them know that earth has no sorrow, that heaven cannot heal. We commit all of these things to your most wonderful, matchless hands. It is in your name we do pray. And everyone said together, amen.
Thank you, Senator. So today we've got a long list of people who are here to speak, and I want to thank each of y'all for coming. We have a tour of a preschool that will begin at 1:15. So I do need to keep us a little bit on schedule, so we'll get right to it. If you could reserve your time to 10, 15 minutes max so that we are able to make it to the preschool tour. We will have lunch served, and during lunch, there's a video that we're going to play as well. But with that being said, first on the agenda is Polly McKinney. All right, and oh, good deal.
Looks like on you here. Now. How about now? No, there's maybe that one's better.
How about oh yeah, that's much better. Well, too good. Hi, I'm Polly McKinney. I'm the Advocacy Director of Voices for Georgia's Children, and thank you for this opportunity to testify. Voices is a whole child policy and advocacy organization, and we have, which means we cover everything from early childhood to juvenile justice, child welfare, early care and learning, child health and behavioral health, and after school and summer learning. And so Katie Landis is the director of our Georgia Statewide After School Network, which is a division of Voices. And she is hands down the best expert on after school, I believe, in the state. And so rather than listen to me, I'm going to hand it over to Katie and let her present.
Thanks, Polly. Good morning, and thank you. Let's see. Trying to change the slide. Well, I'll start talking. But thank you again for this opportunity to be with you today. I'm excited to share a bit about Georgia's after school and youth development programs. Let's see. Maybe. Okay. And as Polly said, I'm Katie Landis. I'm director of the Georgia Statewide After School Network. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Or otherwise known as GSAN. As Polly mentioned, GSAN is a division of Voices for Georgia's Children, and we are dedicated to supporting, connecting, and advancing Georgia's after school and summer learning programs so that Georgia's youth have opportunities to thrive across our state. There you go. After school, summer learning, and other youth development programs expand opportunities for young people to help keep our businesses running. Here's what it looks like on the ground across our state. These programs connect thousands of Georgia's youth with mentors, allow them to experience nature and explore careers, and support their academic and social development. Simply put, these programs can be life-changing for so many of Georgia's families, youth, and communities. We know that when after-school and youth development programs are well-resourced, they can improve academic performance and outcomes. They can improve youth physical and behavioral health outcomes, support Georgia's working families, and build critical skills in our youth. After-school summer learning and youth development programs are designed to complement what kids learn at school, and these programs engage students in enriching activities, offering young people more time for deeper learning and hands-on projects. Students who regularly participate in quality after-school, summer, and youth development programs, they make gains in reading and math, improve school attendance, work habits and grades, and have higher graduation rates. And these outcomes have been found for youth who attend high-quality programs, regardless of whether or not those programs have a specific academic focus. In terms of physical and behavioral health, we know that after-school and youth development programs also keep youth safe and supervised when schools are closed. They provide access to nutritious meals and snacks and are staffed by trained educators who help young people make smart decisions and avoid risky behaviors, both online and offline. 86% of Georgia's parents say that their children's after-school programs offer opportunities for them to be physically active. 71% of these same parents say that these programs keep kids safe and out of trouble. And 77% of these Georgia parents agree that after-school programs reduce the likelihood that youth will engage in risky behaviors. And for Georgia's parents, it's not just about supporting their kids. Many parents are also working 2 or 3 jobs or going back to school in order to provide for their children. After school, summer learning and youth development programs provide a safe space for kids to go when school's let out and parents are still working. This allows parents to focus on work and be more productive on the job. Specifically, 80% of Georgia's parents agree that after-school programs help them keep their job, and 79% agree that after-school programs provide working parents with peace of mind while they're at the office. Nationally, parental concerns about what their children are doing after school results in lost productivity at work that costs the United States businesses up to $300 billion a year. And after school and youth development programs, they're also just this flexible and unique space that can be built around young people's needs and interests. Programs partner with community centers, schools, businesses, libraries, faith-based centers, and colleges to help connect youth in their community to hands-on learning experiences that help them build the skills that they need for future success in college and career. These programs help youth build foundational skills such as teamwork, communication, and critical thinking that help students in school, in workforce, and in life. Youth development programs also provide opportunities within the community to gain real-world experience, including volunteer opportunities, apprenticeships, and internships, so that they can practice skills that will prepare them for success on the job. And these impacts are even more powerful when coupled with the high-quality early learning experiences you heard about at the first committee meeting. In fact, researchers have found that the impacts of early childhood education and after school are cumulative, meaning that a young person who experiences both high-quality early learning and after school has twice the benefits. When coupled together, the impacts of high-quality early learning and after school on a youth's academic outcomes can be just as powerful or even more powerful than a mother's education level, which is often studied and really shown to have that connection to youth outcomes. Unfortunately, in Georgia, the demand for these programs has continued to outpace supply. In 2020, Georgia parents reported that 18% of Georgia's school-age children were participating in after-school programs. But 633,000 more children would be enrolled in a program if one was available to them into their community, according to these same parents. That means that for every 1 student in an after-school program in Georgia, 2 more are waiting to get in. And while I said 2020, we have even new data from our friends at Georgia Can. There's a report that we have for all of you from Michael O'Sullivan at Georgia Can, showing that just released a week or 2 ago, this month, that Georgia is ranking nationally as, this is not a good ranking, the 2nd highest unmet demand for after school across the country, according to parents, only behind the District of Columbia. So Georgia currently uses several federal and state funding sources to support after school and summer learning programs. First, the 21st Century Community Learning Centers is a federally funded program administered by the Georgia Department of Education. Current annual funding is approximately $39 million and supports over 200 school-based and community-based sites across Georgia. CAPS, though CAPS is often associated with funding early learning and childcare, the program also provides scholarships for children up to the age of 13 to attend licensed after-school programs and summer camps. And the out-of-school services program is administered by DFACS. The program uses TANF funds to provide $15.5 million annually of competitive grants to 57 community-based after-school and youth development programs that are operating over 200 sites and serving over 23,000 youth across Georgia. Though the Boost Grants program came to a close last month, over the last 3 years, GSAM partnered with the Georgia Department of Education to award nearly $85 million to community-based after-school and summer learning programs. We'll tell you more about that program in just a minute. And then thanks to the new state line item in FY21, the learning loss grants are administered by DFACS in partnership with the United Way of Greater Atlanta, bringing $2 million in competitive grants to programs across the state. And then 4-H also works during the school day and in after school and summer learning programs to support youth development across our state. Looking at these 6, I want to draw your attention to 4 of those funding streams, but plus also the governor's investment in after school through the GEAR funds, which were his COVID relief dollars. This graph gives us a glimpse into investments in after school and youth development over the last decade. As I mentioned, 4 of the 6 funding streams are on that last slide are included here, and with the addition of the GEAR funds.
In case I can't see it.
It's also, yes, if you have it in your slides, but you also have it in this handout that you all have. Thank you, Polly. These funding streams and that graph are listed there. Thanks. As you can see, the funding for these programs has remained stagnant over the past majority of the decade, but with a significant new investments made in FY22. This is where we saw the addition of the state-funded learning loss grants, the Boost Grants program, and Governor Kemp's investment of the GEAR funds. Because of this funding, we have seen more kids have access to these programs, new programs opening in previously underserved communities, more programs bringing on certified teachers for one-on-one or small group academic support, and increased supports and services provided. The demand for these programs is not going away, but unfortunately, much of the funding that allows them to expand, innovate, or remain affordable is about to end or has already ended. The Building Opportunities and Out of School Times Grants program, or BOOST, is one of these programs that really sparked innovation across our state and increased access to and quality of Georgia's after-school and summer learning programs. GSAN has been honored to work alongside the Georgia Department of Education for the last 4 years to design and implement this grant program. These pictures are just 6 of over the 1,000 programming sites that have benefited from this funding. Using the funding from the American Rescue Plan, Georgia awarded nearly $85 million in competitive grants over 3 years. These grants have supported over 100 grantees over the 3 years, and these programs collectively served over 87,000 young people last year. These grantees serve youth across 112 of Georgia's counties, which are highlighted on this map. Of particular note are those counties in the dark teal. Those, the Boost program had a specific focus to support programs in underserved communities. These highlighted counties represent those that did not previously have funding from the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program or the Out of School Service Office that I mentioned before. That's over 20 counties that now have expanded access to after-school and youth development programs that did not have it previously. I'll also note you have a larger report with you as well. This is the year 2 evaluation brief from the Boost Grants program. The year 3 evaluation from the 3-year program will be coming out this winter. Here's just 2 testimonials from those over 100 Boost grantees. At Agape Youth and Family Center in Atlanta, they said that they are proud that 100% of their high school seniors graduated in May of 2023, with 9 of those students continuing their schooling and 2 entering the workforce. Another Boost grantee reflected on the impact of the funding and what it had on their ability to support literacy. Specifically, they noted the Boost funding allowed them to have reading specialists who serve their kids one-on-one, As they said, these reading specialists have filled in some of the cracks or the foundation that was already crumbling. These programs have been a lifeline in so many communities, and this funding has already come to a close. As you consider how Georgia can expand access to affordable childcare, GSAN, along with some of our partners, provides the following 2 recommendations. These also are noted on that handout that you have. First is to fund after-school and summer enrichment programs by re-upping the Boost Grants program with the suggested funding of $20 million per year. Our second recommendation is to create an interagency liaison for after-school and youth development that can coordinate across the state agencies that handle after-school and youth development, including the Georgia Department of Education, DFACS at the Department of Human Services, DCAL, and the USG Board of Regents. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today and to really start sharing the landscape of after school with you. Before I pass it off to our after school and youth development program partners who do this important work in communities across our state, I am happy to pass it off to our next presenter. And before I do that, I will say, I will pause to see if y'all have any questions for me today.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. If you could go back to the slide that shows the counties of high priority. For those in the audience that may not know, the northeast corner of Georgia, that's my county, and Habersham is my home county, and that's a high priority county. Could you kind of explain what it means to be a high priority county and to help me understand?
Yeah.
Because it looks like over half of my district is classified as a high priority county.
So the high priority counties that we had when we set up the Boost Grants program in 2021, we really looked at the main 2 funding streams that were supporting after school and summer in Georgia, which were the orange on the top left and that teal on the top right. The 21st Century Community Learning Centers program at Department of Education, which is federal funding, and the Out of School Services program. They have, and that's uses the federal TANF dollars. Those programs, we had mapped those across, we've always mapped those across the state. So when you look at those high priority counties that are being served, those were counties that in 2020, 2021 did not have either of those funding streams supporting any after school or summer programs in their community. So our 2 largest funding streams were not there in those communities. So we really prioritize making sure that some of the boost funds got to communities that did not have access to those other government funding streams. And so the dark teal ones are counties that did have a boost site located in them that did not have either of those other funding sources already.
Okay, thank you. John.
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question. When you say they didn't have the funding sources, did they apply for the grant? Do you know that they apply for 21st Century? Because you have to apply for the grant, you just don't get it. Is it because they applied and didn't get it, or is it because there was no application made?
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that offhand. That's something we can look into for you if there's specific counties that you're interested in. What I do know is that oftentimes with 21st Century Community and Learning Centers funds, they often receive double, if not more, amount of applications than they're able to fund each year. So there very well could have been an application. With the Boost Grants program, we were able to fund 52% of the organizations who applied for our funding. And so there was also just a lot of unmet demand there as well. We saw a lot of other eligible applicants who we simply were not able to fund, even though a lot of them had some really terrific programming in their communities.
All right, thank you very much.
Great.
Introduce Eric.
Do you mind if I introduce the next speaker?
No, not at all.
Okay, I'm really excited. We have one of our partners at the national level coming to join us, Eric Peterson. You took away my
Oh,
notes.
sorry, I took your notes.
I don't know what his title is. Eric is the Senior Vice President of Policy at the National After School Alliance. Polly said that I'm an expert here on after school in Georgia. Well, if you're looking at information after school policy at the national level, Eric is your guy. When it comes down to the funding landscape, knowing what's happening in states across our country, he is the foremost expert there. And I'm really excited for him to be able to share some successful examples that are happening in other states across our country. So come on, Eric.
I know.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Katie and Polly. Good morning, senators. Thank you for the opportunity and the members of the study committee on access to affordable care. It's a pleasure to be in the great state of Georgia today and to speak with you all. I apologize for my voice. I'm battling just finished, hopefully, flu. So I don't recommend it. I am Eric Peterson, Senior Vice President for Policy at the After School Alliance. As Katie mentioned, the After School Alliance is a 24-year-old national nonpartisan nonprofit organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm from. It seeks to leverage private and public support to ensure all school-age students have access to quality after-school and summer learning programs. We do this through partnership with the 50 statewide after-school networks, including GSAN here in Georgia, as well as national allies and partners as well. There we go. And working with parents and others. Today, I plan to give you a short overview of the current state level funding landscape for after school and summer programs. First off, why after school? There are many reasons why programs are important. But I think it's important to understand the demand and need for programs. Katie went into this for Georgia, but just for context, nationally, pre-pandemic, as of 2020, about 25 million students nationally would have enrolled in an after-school program if one was available. That was the high point for demand. We've been doing something called the America After 3 p.m. study since 2004 that tracks supply and demand in the field, as well as parent satisfaction with programs. We're all also incidentally at an all-time high for parent satisfaction nationally for after-school programs at 90%. And that marks an increase of 9 million children since 2004, so growth of about 60%. We will have national data in addition to what Katie shared from CAN nationally, but from the America After 3 p.m. state and national data again about a year from now, updating these numbers. So while addressing learning loss, supporting student physical and mental well-being, and keeping students safe are key reasons for demand for after-school programs. Today, I wanted to highlight the need for school-age care for students as well. Studies and surveys show that after-school programs support families and communities. Parents' high levels of stress from school-age students being on their own when school is out results in about 8 unscheduled days of work per year that parents miss, compared to 3 days per year for those parents with less levels of stress whose kids are in programs. A Brandeis University study found that decreased worker productivity due to stress and absenteeism caused by issues related to after-school care arrangements cost employers annually. Other research shows that parents whose students are in school-age programs result in better participation in parent-teacher conferences and school events, improved feelings of student safety, and reduction of vandalism at school. In addition, parents report positive effects in their work life. 60% say they miss less work because of student participation in after-school programs. I will just note too that over the last 5 or 10 years, there's been a lot more research around adolescent age as the second most important, after the first most important being early growth, so infants and toddler stage, but adolescence being the second most important in terms of learning and development and brain growth. And so the latter years of elementary school, middle school, early high school being really important for the individual brain growth, and therefore all the more reason to make sure students have the supports that they need during that age span. Which leads us to the need to fund these programs. While the largest source of funding for programs is parents paying a fee, we know that for middle and low income families, that can be a significant barrier. The federal government, as Katie mentioned, is an important investor in after school, providing about $3 to $4 billion a year, mainly through 21st Century Community Learning Center and the Childcare Development Block Grant, as well as programs like AmeriCorps and others. But states are playing a critical role in supporting programs, with state funding for after school up 20 times the levels of 24 years ago. All states, as Katie mentioned, had federal COVID relief that could have been spent on after school and summer, and many, including Georgia, did just that. And for many of the reasons that you see on the slide, for accelerating learning to youth workforce development and other reasons. So this is sort of a snapshot of where we stand right now, the current funding landscape at the state level. Some of the funding streams that are represented here in red are smaller, some are more robust in the multi-billion-dollar a year range. Some are for summer only, some are for comprehensive summer and after school. 11 states noted by the stars have built off their pandemic-related funding for after school and summer and are now using state funds to sustain and grow their programs. There's a variety of mechanisms that states use to fund after school at the state level, and we'll dive into some of those now. So budget line items obviously is the most popular way, and here are a few examples. I want to flag Missouri, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, all funded after school and summer for the first time this year, building on pandemic era investments. Missouri appropriated 7.4 million. So with lots of states that are investing, we see them to start off small and then grow over time. The 7.4 million in Missouri actually was a new investment in comprehensive after school programs in the state. And instead of creating a new grant program or new infrastructure, they utilized the 21st Century Community Learning Center system that was in place. And basically just, as was mentioned earlier, the demand for 21st century grants far exceeds the funding that's available from the federal level for states. So they were able to sort of spend down those eligible programs using the state funds. Pennsylvania, largely through the support of the governor and lieutenant governor, had 11.5 million allocated in their budget for after school and summer programs. It's a new competitive grant process that they're implementing now. The focus there is really on reducing community violence. And those are the communities with higher levels of violence, both urban and rural and suburban, are where they're focusing those investments. Alabama next door has been funding after school and summer for 3 years now, largely again with the support of the governor. Their 17.8 million investment that they had in 2024 for the after school program was largely from two pieces of legislation that passed a few years ago, the Alabama Literacy Act and the Alabama Numeracy Act. And this is an important point in that for some states, not just funding after school as its own, but as part of a comprehensive support for literacy or numeracy, with some set aside for after school programs within those. Another border state, Tennessee, has funded after school since 2002 using unclaimed lottery prizes. So obviously education is an important, or lotteries are important to fund education in many states. But by looking at prizes that were not claimed, that generates about $14 million a year in Tennessee. That funds a grant program for students aged 5 to 18, enrolling high need students. Sorry, that was the lottery one. And then summer funding. So Hawaii and Oregon both had successful COVID funded summer programs, and we're able to pass legislation this year. Hawaii will be for summer 2025, Oregon for this summer as well. Excise taxes and sales taxes are also have been somewhat popular in several states. Alaska in particular, taxing legalized recreational cannabis to fund after school programs. A lot of those programs end up focusing on the prevention side. So making sure adolescents and young people understand the risks there as well. Finally, we have a number of briefs and write-ups on some of these state funding examples. I'm happy to follow up with those as well. And then just a couple of takeaways and trends. So dedicated state funding is key to sustaining the federal investments that are sunsetting. As Katie mentioned, Alabama, Hawaii, Michigan, Oregon, Vermont, all appropriated funds to continue their successful COVID relief. Georgia, as was mentioned, is a national model with the Boost program. And lots of states have looked at that and replicated that, including in Pennsylvania, which calls their program Boost, and Rhode Island as well. And so being able to continue that program and leverage the infrastructure that was stood up makes tremendous amount of sense. Any funding stream should ensure direct funding access for community-based organizations, including nonprofits, park and rec, libraries, and more to ensure sort of strong school community partnerships. We know that schools are an important provider of after school and summer, but we also know schools have a wide range of federal, state, and local funds that they can access to support their programs, whereas community-based organizations and nonprofits are often more challenged to tap into funding streams. The state agency assigned to oversee the program really should have dedicated staff and support and student-centered approach. The importance of resources and program management and sort of that coordination that Katie mentioned is key. States that have that in place, we've seen are more successful. And then finally, coalitions like the Statewide After School Network, but also providers, parents, young people themselves, educators, all are vital partners when you're standing up a program, making sure that input and that feedback is there and the transparency piece as well, to build a strong system. Programs only have an impact on youth and families if they're quality. That was mentioned, Katie's research that she cited on the tremendous impacts. If you don't have a quality program, you're not going to get those impacts. And therefore, the professional development piece, the capacity building for providers, shared data systems, continued quality improvements, all of those, just like they're important for early care, are vital for the school age, after school and summer fields. And so making sure that any system has that built in is key. And then finally, it's important to minimize barriers to accessing grant funding and ensuring funding is available in all geographic areas of the state. Rural communities have tremendous need for after school, but also lots of challenges with staffing and transportation. And so, including as well, making sure providers have forward funding in some cases rather than reimbursement model. We've seen some challenges with being able to be reimbursed and not having the funding up front. So a couple of states have built in that flexibility as well. And with that, happy to take any questions. And I, again, really appreciate you all having me up today.
Well, thank you for coming. That was a lot of good information, and I know you were able to get it in a very brief amount of time. Are there any questions from the committee?
There we go. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. This really is more just a housekeeping issue. We ran through a lot of this quickly, and some of it's too small for me to read, and we can't read it on our handouts. So I would love to have all of these disseminated in a way that we could go back and review them later.
Apologies for that. Happy to follow up with better information.
That's great information.
More
Just,
readable,
yeah.
more readable.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, delving into some of the ways the different states did things. Yeah, thank you.
We need reading glasses is what she's saying. We don't have them.
Well, I actually have some, but I don't think it's gonna work for that.
Yeah.
Now,
Well-
we have handouts that have that in that last slide in more detail. So happy to follow up with that.
Well, thank you for coming down today. I was just told that we do have lunch ready, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do a somewhat working lunch, and if everyone could get the lunch out in the hallway, and then we'll come back in and watch a video.
Cool.
And then we'll get right back to it. We're on schedule, so Chairman Strickland will be proud.
Very, yes.
We'll take a quick break. Thank you.
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Oh, we've got one.
All right, so hopefully everybody had a chance to grab some food. And what we're going to do just while we're eating lunch is we're going to watch a video. It's about 10 minutes, and then we'll pick back up with the committee. Well, yeah, thank you for that video. That was great. Next up, we have Christine Steinman. Looks like she's getting ready.
Good afternoon, Christine Steinman. I'm the Georgia Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs Executive Director. I'm really upset that I'm going after the video though, because the kids, I feel like tell the story better than I will. So now I'm a little nervous to do my presentation. But thank you so much, Senators, for having me here today and for being here today to listen to the impact of out of school time on our kids and our families across Georgia. I think the video itself really told why we need the services better than we can. I don't know what else I could add, but I will do my best to do that. I'll start by telling a little bit about who we are and what we do in case you've not heard of what Boys and Girls Clubs are, maybe have a little bit of an idea. But I'll start with our mission, which is to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, responsible citizens. So we're here to make sure that our kids are in a safe space. We've prioritized young people's physical, mental, and emotional well-being for more than 160 years. So we have a long history of providing services to kids. Today, nearly 5,000 clubs across the U.S. are now open, serving kids in a after-school or out-of-school time capacity. And that is for both after school during the school year and also during the summer, spring breaks, winter camps, holiday camps. We provide safe and inclusive spaces. We provide caring and adult mentors and skill building programs. So where schools stop serving during the day, we come in, we step in and provide what schools cannot. So during the day, schools are tasked with providing that education portion. We step in and provide that whole child approach. So anything that a school cannot provide, we provide. So that's that character building aspect. Clubs empower our youth to recognize and value their emotional needs and their paths to becoming strong adults. Mental and emotional support systems at clubs are proven to generate positive coping skills in our youth. You heard a little bit about that from Katie and from Eric today, that talked about how it is that kids have higher stress management skills from participating in out-of-school time programs. Our programs have been proven to do that. Our club kids have higher impulse control. They understand how their feelings influence their actions. And we do that by providing evidence-based programs that teach them how to react to certain situations that may cause them to either make a poor decision or react in a negative manner. Club youth also have strong resilience and higher problem solving and perseverance skills. We know that from the effects of the global pandemic, the effects of having two working parents or one working parent in the household, that they're less likely to come home to someone who's there to help guide them and make those positive decisions. If they're in a club or in an out of school time program, they're more likely to come and ask an adult for advice. Whereas if they're coming home to an empty house, there's no one there to help guide them on that path. They're going to seek it out from someone. A lot of times, even if they have a parent at home, they're less likely to listen to that parent who's there. They're more likely to seek it from a peer. And if they're engaging with other peers in a positive setting where those peers are being guided on those decisions, they're going to receive that positive guidance because they're involved in skill building programs. Nearly all clubs, club youth have reported in 2023 that they can talk to adults at the club if they have problems, about 90% of them, and that those adults will listen and understand what they have to say. So what is our statewide reach and impact? This map is slightly outdated. We're in the process of updating it. But this is where you can find a Boys and Girls Club across the state of Georgia. So earlier today, you saw the map that was provided by the Georgia Statewide After School Network that shows all out of school time programs. This map is just specific to Boys and Girls Clubs. And you can see that all of those blue counties are where we're located. And those blue counties include those high priority areas by the Division of Family Children Services. So the majority of the youth that we serve are considered low income families, and those families include kids who are in the foster youth system. We are primarily, people think, in the metropolitan area, but those statistics are not true. The majority of our clubs are actually based in the rural parts of Georgia. So about 78% of our clubs are actually in the rural parts of Georgia, and 22% are based in metropolitan areas. Last year, we served 62,510 youth across the state of Georgia. We have 170 clubs and sites across the state in about 62 counties. We have 144 what we call traditional clubs. So they're standalone clubs like the one that we're sitting in today. So it's a single building like this. It could be through a partnership with a school. So it might be in an old clubhouse or an old school building. It might be in an old house. It could be in a standalone building that's been built for the purpose of serving as a Boys and Girls Club. Or it could be an old Parks and Rec building or any multitude of buildings, an old shopping center. We also have outreach sites where we may partner with a church or a religious center to provide services. And our most unique partnership are those that are with the military installations. We do have 7 Boys and Girls Club programs that are based on military installations. The current state of youth needs. So why do we try to partner in these unique circumstances, or why do we have the need that we have today? You can see that 2/3 of kids have experienced at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. Those traumatic events can be defined in any way. It could be the effects of gun violence. It could be something traumatic that's happened in their families. It could be the effects of the global pandemic. And depending on how you classify the global pandemic, it's safe to say that 100% of our kids who experienced the pandemic have experienced a traumatic event. 1 in 7 youth have experienced child abuse or neglect in the past year. And 70% of public schools reported an increase in mental health struggles based on the number of students who sought mental health services in the last year. 37% of youth reported they have experienced persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in the last year. So being able to have a safe space for them to be where they can request help or even have an adult to talk to, even if it's not a licensed mental health counselor, is important for these kids. So where clubs need additional support is to be able to either hire those licensed mental health counselors or partner with agencies that have them available for them. So where do we land on this area? Our aspirations for young people is that every school-aged young person will have equitable access to high-quality youth development that enables them to be safe and experience social, emotional, physical, and mental well-being. That they'll graduate high school equipped with skills and experiences that will lead to post-secondary work and life successes. That they will lead change that will advance their families, their communities, and the nation. And that we provide programs and experiences that support each of the 4 priority outcome areas. And for Boys and Girls Clubs, those fall within academic success, character and leadership, healthy lifestyles, and good character. But we can't do that if we don't also support their academic success. So one of those core pillars that I mentioned is supporting reading and math. With the investment of those boost dollars over the last 3 years, and that's the funding source that you heard about earlier that expired recently, we were able to increase the number of reading specialists and parent coordinators. You heard a little bit about that in the video that supported our kids across the state of Georgia. The impact, we did a small snapshot at 6 of our clubs across the state of Georgia, and you can see on the screen here. So the gray and the black show the baseline. So the first pre-test and the post-test. So this is a diagnostic test of where the kids were with their scores when they started and where they were 5 weeks later. And essentially what it's showing is that the scores gained between the pre-test and the post-test on the first chart, which is ELA, English Language Arts, shows that they showed 2 grade levels worth of growth in less than 2 months. So this is a snapshot that was taken over a 6-week period during summer camp. And the second chart shows the same type of growth for math. So being able to measure where they were at the start with the attention that they needed in those specific subject levels, and having the attention of the reading specialists and those math specialists during the summer camp allowed them to have the additional practice time during the summer. This is specific to summer camp. During the day, during a time where there was no schooling, during those long 8 weeks that they have during summer, allowed them to be able to have someone who was tending to what they needed during the day and also continue to practice those skills that would have otherwise been dormant over the summer. We know that that period of time over the summer is the time when learning loss has the biggest impact. You look like you have a question.
No, where my home county, Habersham, we have a Boys and Girls Club and it's phenomenal. And my oldest actually goes to the Boys and Girls Club after school sometimes when we can't pick her up, and she loves it. And I mean, what you're saying is spot on. So I didn't have a question, but
Oh.
I'm very engaged.
Oh, there you go. Good. Thank you. I'm excited then. So some of the other things. So I wanted to show this snapshot of the before and the after for English language arts and math. But some of the other investments that we did make with some of those, the boost funding that we just shared is sadly expiring. We increased the school aged youth attendance throughout the year. We increased the professional development offerings to drive the quality of programs across the state. So through the partnership that we have with Georgia Statewide After School Network and the number of trainings that they were able to provide, we had more free of cost trainings offered to our staff throughout the year, allowing our youth development professionals who are part-time to be able to engage in additional training. We were able to increase transportation routes. So one of the biggest barriers to access to childcare for our families and our kids is transportation. It's getting the kids from school to those out of school time locations. So those are the things that we struggle with the most, is being able to get the kids to our out of school time programs. So the biggest thing that could help our programs is that investment in funding for transportation, additional vehicles, additional drivers. Expanded the breadth and depth of our partnerships in our communities. So being able to reach out to, I spoke earlier, to mental health agencies to be able to partner with them to bring in those counselors to provide services that we otherwise cannot. Boys and Girls Clubs are not licensed therapists, but we do partner with those agencies who have them to provide those services to our kids. We partnered with some specific tutoring agencies to come in, not necessarily with the boost dollars, but with other funding sources to be able to bring in tutors to do that as well. We also brought in some more fun. I forgot. We have fun at the Boys and Girls Club too. It's not all serious business. We brought in some additional sports and fitness programs, dance programs for the kids. We also improved organizational capacity to better support academic achievement. So at a higher level, we were able to increase the number of folks that are credentialed in our administrative offices to be able to bring in and drive outcomes. So we brought in some data outcome specialists to come in and actually measure the kids' academic achievement so that we were properly tracking outcomes as well. And that's that last bullet point up there. So what does that mean for Georgia? So I have a very important slide here for you because Christine, you said so many great things and given us all this information. Well, I can show you how this would provide you your return on investment. So for every dollar that Georgia invests in clubs or an out of school time program, or in our case, clubs, I'm going to say, because I can't speak to everyone. For every dollar invested in clubs, there's a return of $5.20 in economic benefits to club members, their families, and society. And this is a social return on investment. So the total expenditures for Boys and Girls Clubs were $78.6 million. And this is a combination of funding. So we talked a lot about boost funding, but the Boys and Girls Clubs actually receive funding from multiple places. We talked about 21st Century. Some of our Boys and Girls Clubs, not all, do receive some 21st Century funding. Some of our Boys and Girls Clubs do receive the DFACS funding. Some of our Boys and Girls Clubs received GEAR funds as well from the governor's office. We did receive boost funding. And then there's also private funding. Some of our Boys and Girls Clubs do fundraising events and they receive donations throughout the year, and they do have capital campaigns. So our funding does come from a variety of sources, and we're able to do all of the programs and provide all of these by doing a combination of things. That social return for the state would be $408.8 million. What does that mean? It's a big fancy number, but what does it mean? That means increased future lifetime after tax earnings. So that means that there would be reduced healthcare expenditures just based on the healthy behaviors, diets, and physical activity changes that the kids will have when they become adults. That's a reduced justice system involvement that we have. You heard on the video, they alluded to the fact that these are kids who, instead of being outside, potentially engaging in negative behaviors would be in a safe space, not engaging in those negative behaviors. It's a lot cheaper to fund an out of school time program than it would be to fund an incarceration program. So that's where you would see a reduction in that justice system involvement costs. It's also additional taxes paid when they become adults and they're actually securing employment. It's also avoided school costs from grade repetition. So investing in out of school time programs will lead to an additional social return on investment from the state. So as a reminder, what we're asking for is to create and fund a second round of this Boost 2.0 program and continue to support that $20 million investment in the Boost funds for out of school time programs across the state. Because while Boys and Girls Clubs is one agency, there are many agencies across the state who could benefit from continuing to fund this program. You saw that huge reduction in funds that happened as soon as that program expired, and some of the other stimulus programs that were funding the reading and math and learning loss recovery programs throughout the pandemic. Those funds went away, but there was nothing that replaced it. And so continuing to fund those programs would significantly continue to curb that learning loss. That it doesn't mean it went away completely. We need to continue to impact that and continue to close that gap. So that concludes my presentation. Any questions for me?
Thank you. So with the Boost funding, is that a program that existed before pandemic federal relief funds, or was it created to utilize those?
It did not exist pre-pandemic. It was created as a result of the pandemic.
Okay. And was it only the federal COVID relief? Was it just like a pass through? Or
It was-
was there any
yes.
state funding in it?
It was a pass through. It was federal dollars that were passed through.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just going to add that y'all do a very good job of meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You take care of the kids' physical, belonging, safety, which eventually lead to a healthy self-esteem. So what y'all do to supplement, it's a great program.
Thank you.
And I know myself, because I was a young kid, I used to go to the boys club and I went through those stages. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, but
We can help you with that. Come back and volunteer. We'll help you find that out. Thank you so much. We're proud of you.
Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
It looks like we're doing well with the schedule. If everyone can stay right at 10 minutes, we'll have time to do the Boys and Girls Club tour and then have time to get over to the preschool. So next is Allison Toller.
Yes, and joining me is Kim Nelson. Hi,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to testify today. I'm Allison Toller. I'm the Chief Social Impact Officer for the YMCA of Metro Atlanta. And joining me is Kim Nelson. She's our Senior Vice President of Youth Program Development. We are here representing the entire state of Georgia today, Georgia State Alliance of Ys. I want to start by thanking and lifting up a couple of you in particular. If I could lift up Senator Parent, thank you for coming to visit one of our Ys about a month ago and spending some time in our after-school program at our Eastlake Family Y. And then I also want to lift up Senator Brass. He made a particular point to meet with one of our executive directors of our Noonan Y, our Summit Family Y, and really exploring the issues that we're dealing with as it relates to affordable childcare for Georgia's families. So I want to go ahead and lay out just a couple of things about the YMCA of Metro Atlanta and the whole state of Georgia. We've been around like the Boys and Girls Clubs for over 160 years. And you can see this pinwheel here, and it really gives you a snapshot of what Ys are doing across the state. Specifically, I'd like to highlight the fact that in 2024, across the 75 Ys in Georgia, we've served more than 780,000 individuals. 280,000 of those are children and teens. Specifically, we operate 200 childcare sites at Ys in YMCAs themselves or in public schools, and that spans from early learning to after-school programs, summer learning, youth and teen, the whole continuum. Our next slide really highlights this idea of youth across the spectrum. I don't think everyone knows that the YMCA serves from birth, as early as 6 weeks of age, all the way up to really our seniors. And we serve a large percentage of senior citizens. But this graphic in particular really highlights this idea of belonging, achievement, and relationships, and just the span of programmings and how we really try to have that continuum and really show the strength of that. Similar to what Katie shared and Christine, we are also here to really maintain the importance of boost funding and to give you an idea of what the YMCA did with that boost funding and why we think it would be very important to consider a boost 2.0. So I'm going to hand it over to Kim to share that impact.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Good afternoon. I'm excited to be able to share some of the things that we were able to do with boost funding. I'm going to specifically talk about the impact of boost funding for the Metro Atlanta YMCA. However, as the examples that I give, this is something that we were able to implement across the state of Georgia at all of our YMCAs. And so what we know as a Y and many other community organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs, it's very important to make sure that we have the flexibility to serve our local communities, and boost funding allowed us to do that. So one of the things for Metro Atlanta, we have over 20 day camps that we serve throughout the summer, and over 60 after school programs. Our programs run, school gets out on a Friday, day camp starting on Monday. And when day camp ends on Friday, then we are starting after school on that following Monday as well. Boost funding allowed us to really focus on one area, and that was workforce recruitment and retention, and really looking at what are some career ladders and professional development that we can provide for our staff. So one of the things that we did is that in order to retain and recruit our staff is that we increased our hourly pay with 3 different pay levels based on experience and education. But if you came in at one of those pay levels, we wanted to develop a professional development plan to make sure that we are investing in our staff. And if you're coming in at level 1, we want to show you the way to get to level 3. What was really important is that we wanted to ensure that that professional development plan followed what quality rated was. And so we were able to use those pillars that they have for education and the star rating to be able to set out that plan and those different career ladders. The other thing too, as you also heard from Boys and Girls Club, is that we provide really support for mental well-being. As we looked at the investment of providing staff training, we looked at how we can partner with our subject matter experts. So we partnered with Guide, we partnered with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and also Wings from Kids. And one of the things that we found was that we really needed to not only give the resources and tools to our staff to be able to serve and support youth, but we needed to do it to show them how they can support themselves. Because if they're not well and they're not taking care of themselves, then they're not going to be there for our youth during the out of school time period. Another area was that we really looked at enrichment and literacy support. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing dedicated opportunities for academic achievement year round through our after school programs, through our teen programs, and then also through the summertime. So we built out mobile book libraries that went out to all of our day camps. We had a program called Stop, Drop, and Read that through that traditional day camp, we would just have a moment where it was time to hydrate, sit down, read your book, and to be able to work with our kids and build that literacy. The other thing too is we had lunch and learns during our day camp. And so we really wanted to make sure we were infusing some of that academic reinforcement while the kids were having fun and they were enjoying themselves. The other thing through after school is that we have clubs. And so one of the areas for our after school program with clubs labs. We had a literacy club we called Page Turners. We also really focused on other academic areas as visual and digital arts, civic connections. We want to teach our youth how to give back to the community too, not just to be able to receive. And then, of course, also STEAM and programs that really introduce the different types of careers and skill sets that they can utilize in the future. But all of this is not possible without partnerships. Partnerships is the key to the Y success. In addition to our community partners that I mentioned above, we also collaborate with school districts. That is so critical for us. 49 out of our 60 after-school programs in Metro Atlanta are in school locations. So we're actually in the building and we work with the schools where we can operate. And all of those programs are licensed by DCAL. Over the past year, because of Boost funding and what we've been able to do to invest in the programming and enhance, and also with our staff development, we have opened 5 new school locations in Metro Atlanta. And I know across the state of Georgia, we have been able to open up additional after-school programs as all. So we wanted to make sure that we are able to improve access for families and also to make sure that we really looked at how to make childcare affordable with the limited funding that we had. Boost allowed us to do that. They allowed us to expand and enhance our quality childcare without passing the cost to our families. In addition to not passing the cost to our families, we were also able to expand the eligibility beyond caps to offer financial assistance to families through a sliding fee scale. And we've always had that, but we were able to serve more through Boost funding. And in addition to that, we found that we had a lot of families that the process of going and asking for financial assistance was a real barrier for them. And not just about paperwork, but about the ability to say, or just having to say, I need help. And so one of the things that we did, and with feedback that we received from school districts, is that in the 2023 and 2024 school year, we were able to introduce a new free and reduced lunch rate. So all a family had to do was come in, share with us that they were on free and reduced lunch, and they were able to get a lower rate that was below our sliding fee scale. And so it's been a great program for us. It increases every single year, and especially the need. And so not just for the free and reduced lunch, but also for our financial assistance. And funding is needed in order to be able to sustain those needs that our families are coming to us today. So as we talk about Boost 2.10, these are some of the areas that will allow us to be able to continue to serve our families and make sure that our youth are in a safe and quality program while their parents are working. Any questions?
I had a question. Could you highlight a little bit about the college and workforce readiness?
Yes. So back here, so this was one of the things that we created a brand new program for our Y Explore after school program. And so for our K through 5 space, you'll see here on the bottom, as we have monthly themes. So what we are doing is that we actually partnered with Mount Vernon Ventures, who built out a brand new curriculum for us. And what we're doing is that we are introducing different types of careers and allowing the kids to explore to see what is possible in the future. We want to teach them that what you enjoy doing, you can actually have a career in that, because you don't typically think about that. You think about those things that you see on TV, right? What the typical career is. And so a lot of, as you see with trade jobs, community citizenship, food industries, we want to make sure that we are sharing with our kids that there's so many different ways that you can build a career. And a 4-year college is not for everybody. That a 2-year college or a technical college can be the path for you as well. And one of the things that we also built out is that beyond the K through 5 space is that we started creating middle school clubs to continue that pipeline and to continue the work that we're doing through K through 5, so we can continue to support them as they explore and have interest in what different types of careers.
So have you found it pretty I mean, beneficial to expose these kids to these different careers? I mean, are they excited and
They are. I think they get stumped a little bit of like, wait, okay, I do like to draw. So what are there different things you can do, and how can you illustrate, right? And what are there different things being an architect, but I think one of the things too is finding that what we did differently is that we created clubs within that K-5 space, because when you get through that 3rd through 5th, they don't get too excited about after school. That was what we were finding. And you've got to make sure that you're really having that stickiness and you're finding that you can educate them and expose them to different opportunities while they're having fun.
right? And then it's a lasting lesson. So,
Yes.
yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Senator Perrin.
Thank you. So it sounded like you were saying that the boost funding was just a lot more flexible and easier to access than CAPS.
So no, CAPS is limited with our families. Through a lot of our families that don't qualify for CAPS, they are applying for financial assistance. And so sometimes there's a lot of paperwork that happens with this. And so what we have found is that if they've already gone through a process like free and reduced lunch to show that they are at a specific income level, then we want to take that away of that they've got to come to us again to do it. And then that way we can go ahead and provide them with a affordable rate for care.
They're really just kind of two different things.
It's two different
okay.
things. That free and reduced lunch was really about the families that didn't qualify for CAPS. And then really the financial assistance wasn't fully meeting their needs because CAPS is limited. And so we really wanted to figure out a way that we can continue removing that barrier.
But CAPS does fund some after school.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We are a CAPS provider for our
Mhm.
licensed after school programs. We are quality rated. And so we receive CAPS funding through families. And then also through our day camp programs, we also are a CAPS provider. So families that are receiving CAPS, they can identify a program that is a provider, and then they go and they pay for a portion of the tuition.
Okay, so I know that CAPS is that there's a lot more need than
Yes.
money available. Like
Yes.
I know that, but so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is is there any like benefit to boost specifically, or if we had more funding in CAPS, could that cover this universe? Is I guess what I'm trying to say. I know we have all these categories and I know we're doing this and that with CAPS,
Right.
but say we didn't have
Yeah.
all that.
Katie, do you want to?
I think Katie could really draw that out a little
Okay.
bit more.
And as Katie comes, Katie, could you provide some clarification of when you talk about CAPS? Because under the American Rescue Plan, there was this increase salary amount that was included that since that funding is now gone, I've got many constituents who were on CAPS that are off CAPS with no coverage. And so they are falling within this gap.
That part, I'm not the best one to answer. And I was looking around to see if Liz is not here anymore. Oh, okay. No. But to the first question around, just the difference between boost and investing additional dollars in CAPS, there's a couple primary differences that I'll lift up. Is one, CAPS goes up through age 12. And so when we're talking about all of our programs that serve our teens, especially, hearing from Christine and Boys and Girls Clubs and the work that they're doing with our older youth, and you'll hear from Tina in a second, who's really focusing on work with our older youth in the after school summer space. That's outside of the age range that CAPS funds. Also, there is a lot of youth development programs in our state that are exempt from licensing, and therefore they are not eligible for CAPS as well. Boys and Girls Clubs is another key example of that. Boys and Girls Clubs, under some of DECAL's exemption categories, is exempt from childcare licensing, so they are not eligible to receive CAPS.
I see.
And so there's beyond the mechanism of how the two fund, I would say there's a real difference in who would simply have access at that point. But then when you do talk about the way that the mechanism of how they fund. I will say, yes, Boost was more flexible than a lot of government funding streams have been. That came through with the American Rescue Plan. A lot of flexibility was built in there. And we were really intentional to pass down as much flexibility as we could to the local programs. So some of those harder to fund costs like transportation, I think is a big one that was really, we were able to see one of our programs in Augusta. They purchased a bus and they are for the first time ever providing free transportation to and from every day after school and during the summer so that families have access to these programs. That's just one example. So there's a lot of, there was a lot of flexibility that programs were able to really be responsive to their community needs around how they use those funds.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, I was just going to make a comment. I don't think people realize how important the why is in preparing people for leadership by helping them become self-actualized. For example, in Atlanta, the famous Butler Street Y shaped a lot of civil rights and political leaders that came online. And one that comes to mind is Vernon Jordan. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. In fact, the Andrew and Walter Young Y off Campbellton Road has really kind of taken the beacon from the Butler Y that was open for many years in terms of serving the community and building leaders. And specifically, we have the superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, the new superintendent, doing a meeting, a town hall at that Y today. So thank you for lifting that up. And thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have Tina Pinkston.
Yes. Hello, I can't believe I'm sitting at this table right after national, statewide, amazing organizations, because my name is Tina Pinkston. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Lift Youth Center. We are in Catoosa County, which if you kept following I-75 up, you're going to run right through Catoosa County. I was just with a group of parents who saw a big need, a gap in services in our county, and we decided to do something about it. This is my current staff. We're six years old, not 160. I can't imagine. Oh, is there a clicker? Oh, perfect. Thank you. And so when we saw that need, we thought maybe we could try to fill that gap in services. We did that by creating a free after school program, completely free for just middle and high school students, because that was the big gap, where we create opportunities for them to be loved as they are. That's the Ellen Lift, inspired to be more, found in community, and trusted to make a difference. It has been off. Now we're on our 4th year and it's the most beautiful thing. I'm not going to go through some of my stuff because they did such a good job covering a lot of those statistics. Instead, I'm going to leave that up, but I'm going to tell you about a survey we did 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, 56 of my kids did a suicide training about how to help spot issues, how to help walk with their friends through struggles. After that suicide prevention training, we had them take a mental health quiz just to get a quick snapshot. And I just want to share that snapshot because it's more powerful than this, I even believe. 38 of those 56 kids just that day said they feel sad, depressed, or withdrawn at least 10 days a month. 12 of them have had self-harm acts in the last year, and 5 of 56 had had a suicide attempt in the last year. And that's just a sample of kids in my area. So they need this stuff, right? It's much bigger than just the school day, like everybody said. In our rural area, again, big gap. And we do on the map from Boys and Girls Club, our little corner, all 3 counties in our corner, no Boys and Girls Club. Although to the south of us, I have an amazing Boys and Girls Club friend who is a great mentor to me. And we have a YMCA, but it's relatively limited, the amount of impact they can have, although they're doing a great job. So we come into the space and are able to serve more kiddos, and in that range that's specifically not being served in a big way by our schools and their partners. We try to address lots of needs. I'm gonna skip past some of this. This was the last 3 years, a snapshot of what we've done in our program. And when I say that we've done 2005 after-school workshops, I don't have a whole lot of detail up here, but we say it's how we reach the kids. So it's recreation, education, art, community, and health. In addition to our workshops that happen every day, we have tutoring, free tutoring and mentors, peer support groups, there are parent nights. We have group therapy once a week. So we provide a lot of opportunities for them in that space. And they have found it to be very impactful. And these are just a few stats that they talk about their experience with us, not just that it's a safe space, but they can discover those new skills and interests. They make new friends, and they have found that it's helping them become better leaders in their lives. We also, this again, quick snapshot. These are the kind of things: their physical health improved, their social health improved, their mental health improved. Those are ridiculously high numbers. My favorite, though, is this 72%, and this is at the end of last year. So their happiness has increased. Can we have more joy, please? Can we boost that? Speaking of boost. All right. So we were one of 100 agencies that got that boost funding over the 3 years. It was about 19% of our funding in that 3-year period. And so that's big. It helped us, especially as a startup nonprofit, get off the ground, and to do that really well. We got boost our first year, year one, and it ran through those first 3 years. Super critical for us. We are really a success story in so many ways, and it's critical that our program be free. Many of our kids could not afford it. If we had to charge it all, they just wouldn't be there. And so we want to keep it free. Now that boost funding is not there, I've got a gap in my budget that I've got to try to figure out how to find, which I'm hopefully we can do. But wouldn't it be beautiful if the local government, statewide government could come alongside us in a regular way? We know this is a typical day for us. We know that we're doing a great job, but we're only meeting part of the need right now. But to have 27% of one of our middle schools be a part of our program is pretty amazing. But you can see there that there are a lot of schools we have not been able to reach yet. Last year, we actually decided we were going to address that, and we went after some startup funding to open a second youth center. So that's our little county, and you can see that where number 5 is our current center in Ringgold, our one facility. I love how big and amazing the rest of the state is. For us, it makes all the difference to have that one facility, but we're about to have 2. So in the fall of this coming fall, 2025, we'll open that second facility. We're already having conversations with the county next to us about how desperately they would like to have one of our centers. So we're thrilled to get to stand in that gap and be with those kids for all the reasons that you've already heard today. But just a few quick quotes from kids. I asked, as I was preparing for this, for some ideas from them about what I should share with you. And this is what they said. Lift in any after-school program. It's important because it helps nurture the children of today. Another kid said, "It makes me feel better. It distracts me from any bad things that happened during the school day." Lift is important, one said, because it teaches people to be kind and respectful, and it helps us stop aggression. And my favorite was that being at Lift encourages students to do more, be more, and help more. So on behalf of those kids and all the ones that we're about to start serving, and as a mother, so I have a 6th grader and a 9th grader who attend our program, and they need it, right? Their friends need it, and kids just like them all over need it. So I would love for you to extend Boost 2.0. I think you should increase it. I don't think there's enough funding, because I was just one of the 100 that got it. But to your point, Katie, earlier, there were twice as many that really needed it. Little mom and pop things just like mine that came out of the community for the community. And so it's super important. And I hope that that it all comes back. Questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned about suicide, and I think that's important because when I was coming up, you can kind of turn teasing off.
Yeah.
But now, because of the internet, it's 24/7, and I've served with people in the Air Force who committed suicide. And it's just such a shock. And we had to go through annual suicide awareness training. And when I'm in session and we're having a hard time, I try to go through those steps, make sure I'm not.
That's good.
I'm just joking on that part.
I mean, but really, most of our world is having those thoughts more, it feels like, than they ever have
Mhm.
before.
But we have to reassure them that's just a natural part of growing up. And you have to take the rain and the sunshine, the good, the bad, and become the flower we hope we want them to be by investing through the Boost program.
He is good. You're writing these things down. I love it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on Senator Rhett's point, I mean, we are seeing a lot of evidence that social media in particular has had some damaging impacts on youth mental health. And my question is for your program, and I guess I'd be curious with the others, I'm curious about the rules around technology when you're in the program.
Yeah, this that little devil in their pocket is a serious, serious thing. And it's also completely ingrained in their culture. And so it's a little bit of a trick to fight against it. One of the things that we do is we allow them to have those phones when they first get there and they're getting their snack and it's downtime. When we go into our program time that's structured, they have to put the phone away. And if they get it out, then they're voluntarily bringing it up to the front desk and leaving it for the rest of that time frame. When we go back to free time, they can have it out again, but you can guarantee all my adult volunteers and staff are always looking over shoulders and just keeping an eye on that as they're with us. We just last week did a program about using that phone for good. Because if maybe that's part of the key is that we can teach them that, yeah, as a matter of fact, there's a breathing app that can help you calm down. And there's this app that you can use to encourage your friends. And so maybe we can twist some of that around and use it for the positive, because it's not going away. And you're right, it is a serious problem.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Next we have Shannon Ferguson.
I will echo Tina's comments. These are all really hard acts to follow. Vice Chair Hatchett, members of the study committee, my name is Shannon Ferguson. I'm the senior policy analyst at Georgia First, a policy think tank and nonprofit advocacy organization that's dedicated to preserving and growing Georgia's middle class. We do that by preserving a strong economy and and that emphasizes opportunity, innovation, and fiscal responsibility. I am here offering comments today on behalf of our founder and executive director, Natalie Crawford, who could not be here on the rescheduled date. But more importantly, woven in the comments today are real Georgia families' child care stories that we want to share with you. We also want to make sure at the end that we get the full video that is the compilation of all of those child care stories to the committee along with the written testimony. So thank you for the opportunity to address the committee on an issue that, as you all know, impacts not only families, but our state's economy as well. Access to affordable care is not only fundamental to Georgia's families, but critical to the future of our workforce and economy. Childcare has long been a significant expense for families, with many using savings of their household income to pay for these costs. At best, it's shrinking household incomes, and at worst, it's shrinking and preventing savings. And according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 7% is the maximum household income that should be spent on child care that is considered affordable. Yet what the data actually shows is that families on average are spending up to 24% of their household income for child care. In fact, just last month, a Bloomberg Business Week article reported that many U.S. families are spending more annually on childcare than on their housing, as much as $33,000 annually per family. In many cases, families are spending more on childcare than they spend on college tuition. Take Elizabeth from Gwinnett County, a two-parent household with two children, both parents working. They spent 35% of their combined household income, almost double their monthly mortgage, on childcare costs for her son and her daughter. Elizabeth told Georgia First, quote, "We quickly realized that our family could not afford childcare for two children and get my small business off the ground. The solution for Elizabeth's family was to pull her youngest daughter out of childcare and care for her daughter at home while building her small business all simultaneously. a financial decision that many families are forced to make regardless of the reduced or missed educational opportunities that result. The cost of childcare is forcing some Georgia families into a financial hole in the first 5 years of a child's life, a hole that sometimes is almost impossible to climb out of, and often at a time when these young families are repaying their own student debt from their higher education. So when families forego early childhood education for financial reasons during those first 5 years, there are significant impacts to those long-term literacy opportunities. And that's because we know that 90% of a child's brain development occurs during those first 5 years before a child even begins kindergarten. So when affordable childcare is out of reach for families, it's more than just an inconvenience. It's an essential service that determines whether families can succeed, whether parents can remain in the workforce, and whether children can receive the foundation that they need for a successful future. Take Lanika from Hazelhurst, a single mom who told Georgia First that many women could build better careers and take advantage of employment opportunities with accessible and affordable childcare. These complications surrounding childcare create obstacles for work and furthering their education, ultimately pushing some moms out of the workforce altogether. And when parents, particularly mothers, are forced out and reduce their hours or leave the workforce altogether, our communities across Georgia lose valuable talent and productivity. Businesses suffer from higher turnover, reduced employee engagement, and a shrinking labor pool. Rick, a small business owner from Central Georgia, told Georgia First how the lack of childcare in his community has impacted the reliability of his own workforce. So much so that he took it upon himself to try and assist his employees with identifying less costly childcare options. While cheaper, the options may or may not offer the same robust early literacy skills development when compared to a high quality childcare programming, many of which you've heard from today. Ensuring affordable access to childcare supports Georgia's current workforce demands and consistently increasing our investments in early childhood education through programs like the highly successful CAP Scholarship Program improves our literacy rates today and helps us deliver the workforce of the future. Terry from coastal Georgia shared with us how the CAPS program assistance that she personally received from DeKalb saved her and her family and allowed her to continue working and providing for her family. That CAPS assistance kept Terry in the workforce, benefiting Terry's family, her employer, her local community, and the state of Georgia. The cost to families is more than just financial, though. When affordable childcare is out of reach, parents experience an enormous amount of stress, and their children miss out on those early learning opportunities that can significantly impact their long-term success. Research shows that quality early childhood education sets the foundation for cognitive and social development, affecting everything from school readiness to high school graduation rates. Everybody before me has certainly proved that today. By not addressing Georgia's childcare crisis, we are failing to invest in the future of Georgia's children. And that's why we believe that now is the time to act and why we are so thankful for this committee. Georgia First urges this committee and the Georgia General Assembly to consider improving eligibility rates for the CAPS program, as well as raising the CAPS scholarship and improving the reimbursement rates on a Tier 2 and Tier 3 provider level. Potential funding sources, we believe, could include surplus tax revenues and/or surplus lottery reserves. As fiscal conservatives, Georgia First understands these recommendations that we're making come with a price tag, and understand that with federal matching dollars maximized in many cases, the state would be solely responsible for these child care improvements. However, if we make investing in affordable, accessible, and quality childcare a top priority, the return can be felt for generations. And I think we've seen a lot of those stories prove that today. Improved literacy rates, stronger families, a more resilient workforce, brighter futures for Georgia's children, and of course, continued economic prosperity for our state. Let's help ensure that no Georgia parent has to choose between working and caring for their children. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee, and thank you for the work you're doing and your service to our state.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No, I think that's it. Okay. And then the last thing we have is a video from JT Wu. And then after that, we'll get to tour the Boys and Girls Club.
Good afternoon, Chairman Strickland and distinguished members.
There we go. Thank y'all, everyone who came today. Once again, our thoughts and prayers are with Chairman Strickland and his family. I want to say a special thank you to our Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, not only for putting together this committee, but for establishing the Children and Families Committee that's been operating in the Senate for the last 2 years. These are very important topics that we face. I know just as a father of 4, childcare is expensive, and we've got to do something to lessen the burden that families are feeling, especially if we want to continue the economic prosperity and the business-friendly climate that we've had in the state of Georgia, because it all goes hand in hand. So thank y'all for your time today, and we look forward to touring the Boys and Girls Club after this. So with that, this portion of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.